She looks like that. Lisa, all of this one.
So I rolled.
And retrieve it.
I had.
They work on it.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to do it. But I probably was very good.
in your inbox.
He was like, oh my God.
Everything is one thing. Anything that is here, get filed, have disclosed for a certain period of time.
Call this meeting to order and ask that you please stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Welcome to our City Council meeting for September 18th, 2023. This evening we have a budget hearing for the 2024 budget. So I will call the hearing open for the budget hearing, and we will now allow the public to speak on the budget if there are those who wish to speak. Do we have anyone sign up?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we will move to item C, which is the adoption of the budget. And so we will, who are we wanting to? Okay, I'll call on David. David, hey, please go on up to the podium and he will speak regarding the budget for next year.
Apologize, I thought I had it up. Okay. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So in the May and July study sessions, we presented you guys the preliminary 2024 budget and outlined the capital improvement projects that go through 2028. Based on feedback and revisions have been made to the budget, and the final budget is now being presented to City Council for adoption. The recommended budget is based on the following. So the 2023 mill levy for Lindsborg was 55.912 mills, which generated $1,597,211 in property tax revenue. The R&R for 2024 has been set at 52.003 mills to generate the same property tax revenue. The budget proposes that the mill levy for Lindsborg be set at 55 mills, which is lower than last year's mill levy, but about 1 mill higher, slightly above the R&R, sorry. The budget comes to council after several iterations and deep dives by staff to trim expenses where possible, anticipating that costs will continue to rise and workforce challenges will continue. The executive staff, with input from employees across the organization, developed the 2024 budget, which addresses council's project-based priorities. Staff has made every effort to reduce expenses, even amidst rising costs, and to invest in the city's people and places. The budget allows Lindsborg to maintain its high standards for excellence and its reputation as a place that people choose, while also being mindful of taxpayers who support the city. So just the budget at a glance, it just gives you a review there of the 2024 R&R was 52.003, the 2023 versus the 2023 R&R. What our mill levy proposed today is at that 55, and then just the value of the mill as it was in 2024 versus 2023. So the motion today is to approve the City of Lindsborg 2024 operating budget as presented.
Thank you, David. Questions from the council for David? Questions whatsoever? Okay. All right, well, apparently, David, you did a great job explaining that.
Good.
So, and thank you, City Council. I know that you have reviewed these documents. This is taking place over several months, and I appreciate your diligence for that. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
That being the case, a motion is now in order for the adoption of the budget for 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the budget for 2024 as presented. Are there questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, do we need a roll call? I'm just kidding.
Definitely on this one, yes.
We will ask our city clerk to please call roll.
Councilmembers Peterson,
Yes.
Vanderway,
Yes.
Galvin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Evil,
Yes.
Presley.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The 2024 budget is adopted, and we will close the hearing. Now, my understanding, do we have a signature page on that? So we will send that around, and you can sign that as it comes to you. We will now move to item number 4, which is public input on any topic. We'll ask our clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak from the public? Seeing no one from the public, we will turn our attention to item number 5, amendments to the agenda, and ask our administrator, are there amendments?
There are no amendments.
Thank you. We'll now turn our attention to item number 6, the mayor's report. And I want to just make note that on Thursday evening this week, there will be a meeting in the Sunstrom building regarding Bethany College. And as you are all aware, the connection between the city and Bethany College is a long history of that connection, and we have the opportunity to speak with President Mount. Will be there at 4:30 on Thursday in the Sunstrom building. Cheryl Rasmussen, who is the chair of the board, and former Mayor Becky Anderson, who also serves on the board. If you are available, or family members or members of the public, please plan on being there to show support from the city to the college and listen to some of their goals and some of the strategies they have for the near future. Very important meeting, and I would strongly encourage you to do so, and I would like to thank Bethany College for that opportunity. So that's this Thursday evening at 4:30 in the Sunstrom building. With that, we will turn to item number 7, the consent agenda. And these items are routine and enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless a council member so requests. Item A is the approval of the minutes from the revenue neutral rate hearing of September the 5th, 2023. Item 2, the regular meeting, September 5th, 2023. Item B, payroll ordinance number 5449. And item C, purchase order ordinance number 5450. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Are there questions on the motion?
It's a little harder to find potentially, I don't see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, David. Okay, any further questions on the motion? We have a motion before you to approve the consent agenda. You have the city clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Booth.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Presley.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion is approved. The consent agenda is approved. And thank you, Roxy. Turn our attention to item number 8, the appointments. Madam Administrator, do we have appointments for this evening?
There are no appointments this evening.
Item number 9, committee reports. Do we have committee reports this evening? Okay, thank you. Item number 10, old business. Is there old business to come before the council? Thank you. We'll now turn our attention to item 11, new business, and we will begin with item A, the Public Safety Center renovation project. And I'll call on our Chief of Police, Mike Davis. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Happy to be with you tonight. I'll put these on, make sure I can read everything. So as you know, this is a project we've been working on for the better part of 2 years now. So we've come to you with this agenda report, putting everything together over those 2 years. So one of the objectives of the city strategic plan was to provide a safe and healthy community with the goal of providing public safety services for all that maintain and exceed standards of excellence. Lindsborg's Public Safety Center, located at Lincoln and First, was built in 1987, with no modernizing or large-scale improvements having been made to the facility since that time. In spring of 2022, staff identified a need to improve both the interior and the exterior areas of the public safety buildings. Proposals were solicited from 4 firms, and only Hutton responded. At the June 6, 2022 regular meeting, City Council approved Hutton to complete the space needs analysis, renderings, and budget for the project. On March 23, 2023, City Council approved the design build agreement with Hutton and moved forward with the Part 1, which consisted of the design and engineering, at a cost of $41,100 to commence the renovation project. Public safety and administrative staff have met regularly with Hutton to develop the design and fine-tune the budget and are on pace with the timeline that was listed in your report. Tonight, we are here to present you with the total guaranteed maximum price and the Part 2 build agreement. So the total guaranteed maximum price as presented in the Part 2 agreement is $879,885. As part of the fiscal year 2023 budget, which the City Council passed in September of 2022, $200,000 was allocated for the first half of the project, with the second half to be budgeted in fiscal year 2024. More than $200,000 budgeted in the fiscal year 2023 will be applied to the project, along with projected sales tax revenues, interest earned, unbudgeted half-cent sales tax revenue, remaining ARPA funds, and through the capital reserve. The 2024 operating budget has funds allocated in the amount of $375,000, with sales tax revenues to supply additional funds. And staff has and will submit grant applications to reduce the pressure of the budget. We've to date already sent 2 grants in, and we're waiting to hear back. Staff feels confident that the project presented achieves all the desired outcomes to improve our workplace efficiency, maximize safety, and ensure the well-being of our first responders within a project budget that does not place additional burdens on the taxpayers of the city. With that, we're looking for a motion to approve the Part 2 build agreement with Hutton at a guaranteed maximum price of $879,885 for the completion of the Public Safety Center renovation project. And I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Are there questions from the council to our Chief of Police? Councilman Peters?
I will here shortly. I'm trying to get to it. I think it was in the alternates, but the GMP that's being presented, does that include it seemed like the doors, the garage doors, the biggest ticket item that seemed like a low hanging fruit?
That is considered part of the project
But-
along with the EMS building.
But the GMP includes the nice.
It includes those doors up there, so we went with no windows.
No windows.
No
Okay,
windows.
so that was already taken, that was my question.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
There were some alternates, I believe, that were not taken, is that right?
Correct.
Trying to find this again, so. Relocating the bollards in the south garage door, that looks like that was not approved. Truck fill locations not approved.
Well, are you talking about the refill station? Because we did pull that, but we're doing it in-house.
Okay.
The water replenishment for the fire department, we're doing
Yeah,
that
it's
in-house.
a fire truck fill locations.
We pulled it from that, but we are doing it in-house,
Okay.
and we are moving forward on that.
The movement of the bollards was part of one of the designs that we looked at, one of the initial designs that had some different garage doors and some different, like the facade was a little bit different around the garage doors. And part of what we did to scale back the budget was to rethink the bay a little bit and how those doors looked. So we were able to achieve a design that doesn't require all of that cement work and moving of the bollards. They will remain in the place that you see them, that they are now. They'll just be painted red to match the garage doors.
Well, and I know you mentioned it when you read through the material there, and I know the city staff's been involved in going over these plans, looking at it, but you feel like you have everything in here that was on the priority list, so to speak, in terms of things that are, items that are needed.
Absolutely. The main priorities that we were looking for, those are things that we wouldn't budge on, but we found other areas where we had the flexibility to do that. But everything that we feel we need, not just for now, but for the next 30 to 40 years, are in there.
I just need a little clarity on how the funds add up. So that the total amount that will pass through the recommended motion is 879, and we've got, there's not 879,000 numbers up here. Talk us through that.
And if
Yes, David, you want to
If you
come
would
up?
help as well, but, so the $200,000 that council approved in 2023 is being allocated to this project. However, because of a really good year in terms of sales tax revenue, we also have the half-cent unbudgeted sales tax revenue. We have unallocated ARPA funds that we have not spent because some of those were being allocated to Frederickson Family Fitness Park. And we came in under budget on that project and over fundraised, so we were able to achieve that project. And then we also have grants that we are writing. And then we also, next year, aside from the $375,000 that council would be allocating in the budget you just passed a little bit ago, there's $375,000 set aside. But out of that, we also have like $20,000 budgeted separately for the HVAC component. We have $15,000 budgeted for the EMS building. So some of the components of the project are budgeted separately, so that relieves the overall pressure on the main number that you're seeing. So while we can't account for every single dollar in what you're seeing tonight in the budget, staff has gone over this and has a spreadsheet internally that we know that all of the funds are allocated, and we feel confident in this budget number. We brought this down just for comparison's sake. When HUD brought us the original project based on everything that we had asked for. That number was about $1,088,000. We're able to bring it down to $879,885, what you're seeing tonight. So that's with all of these alternates that we chose. And then with David and Chief Davis and I being able to look at the different budget buckets and determine where to pull from to alleviate pressure on the overall budget to achieve that number. But David can give you a bit more specifics.
So as far as the half-cent sales tax, if you guys will remember in January, that's when we allocate the expenditures towards that. I know as we went out throughout the year last year, we looked at the new server when that was an unexpected expense, and then there was something else, I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyways, there were some items that were on, that we went ahead and we allocated ahead of time, knowing that we were gonna have funds in there. And so last year was 237,000. This year's on track to be over that, so I would guess we're gonna be in the 240 to 250,000 available with that half-cent sales tax. And then, so we'll have that for this year to be able to apply towards the project, but then we'll also have, I would guess, as long as sales tax continues in that same manner, close, if not the same amount for the 2024. Also, our interest continues to be great that we're receiving on all of our CDs. We have monthly CDs that come in for renewal, and those have been all over the around the 5% range. So our return on investment on those has been high, that we've earned interest on those. So we have that available. And then we do also have some money in reserves. The reserves in the half-cent sales tax will be the last thing we look at to pull from, but we know it's there and available if we need to.
Who did you apply to grants to?
The NUT fund, there was two grants.
And then McPherson County.
Community Foundation. And then we are looking at a couple of other like national grants that are for specific for public safety for police stations or fire stations. So we're working on writing those are for larger grants.
Further questions for the chief, or the city administrator, or the director of finance?
There are some exclusions. I noticed that there's, some of the security stuff's not included.
Correct.
Chief, do you know kind of what you're gonna need added in terms of added security, access control, those kinds of things?
Yes, we actually met with one of the vendors today.
Okay.
So we did not remove that from the project. We just removed it from Hutton's portion of the project, and then we'll also. Would you like to see a few more numbers? It's a very large dollar. It will not be Sharp Not to scale. Not to scale. So you'll notice that the entrance of the building has shifted from Lincoln Street to First Street, so that's the new entrance that you see that was and then this door right here would be the full entrance, that is the current building entrance.
Yeah, Chief, I think everybody wants to know, no one wants to ask, but is that Councilmember Presley on a bicycle?
There's hair. And besides that, it would be illegal.
But they could go in either one. This is just the main entrance.
Well, the main entrance, what it's actually going to do is open up some more spaces for the public. So by putting our front door where our address is actually, we get a few more spaces for the public, and employees will not be parking there, they'll be parking elsewhere. And that gives us, one, we're able to make it ADA compliant and have a handicap space in there, as well as have extra spots for the public to come in.
Point out that we have 3 members from Hutton here this evening. Josh Sherman, Jason Gillick, and Justin May. We appreciate you guys being here. And if there's any questions for them, specific, I'm sure they would not mind answering questions.
It's probably in our packet, but help me out. What's the timeline and schedule for the project? Estimated days to complete?
19 weeks. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
No more.
Yes, ma'am. 19 weeks away. Yes.
Okay, any further?
I was just going to tag on to that. Completion and grand reopening is both scheduled for April 1.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping completion will be before that, and then the grand opening will be in April, but it is anticipated to go from November through March. That's the timeline that we it does say assumed construction duration, so we will assume that you'll have it done in 19.
Do appreciate you being here. Sorry, I can't think of a question.
I would just like to thank them for meeting with us many, many times and dealing with a lot of questions and a lot of last minute requirements of us to change things. And they've been very patient and most willing to accommodate our requests and our needs, and it's been a pleasure working with them. So we look forward to the project getting underway.
Just have one more question. It's probably an obvious one, but I'll ask to confirm. I'm assuming our council has had a chance to peruse in fine detail. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's been reviewed a couple of times.
All right.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Chief. Thank you, David and Christy. And this is something that I think that you can all be proud of as a council and as a city, this updating. And I think it speaks highly of our priorities here. And thank David and the Chief and Christy and really trying to find savings where they can. I just have to say, I told Christy this the other day, but I was, a couple weeks ago, I was in a meeting with Mark Hutton. He was chairing the meeting, and when he finished and gabbled down, he said, "We're 8 minutes under budget." Pretty good. So anyway, thank you very much. Council, the recommendation is a motion to approve Part 2 build agreement with Hutton at a guaranteed maximum price of $879,885 for the completion of the Public Safety Center renovation project. Is there a motion to that effect?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, we will ask our city clerk to please call roll.
Councilmembers Bruce,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Danaway,
Yes.
Gallant,
Yes.
Presley.
Yes.
Eagle.
Yes.
I never get first. That was fun.
Thank you, council. And motion is adopted. And thank you and good work. We will now turn our attention to item B, the streets project. And I will call on Chris Lindholm, our Public Works Director. Welcome, Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Come to you for tonight with a item that's kind of broke out in a couple of different pieces. One actually would not necessarily need approval, but I wanted to give it to you as part of an update for the project on North Kansas Street. And then the other one will be an additional project that we would like to add to the paving project. But North Kansas Street, as you know, that was approved last year as a project to do the 600 and 700 block of North Kansas. We had it scheduled for paving, and about a week before we found out that the college was going to do a project. So we felt it best to pull that back off and not do that project at that time, because it's obvious what would have happened to the new street. So I've been working with both the contractor that's doing their project and our contractor, trying to work to do the schedule and get this done. Part of the grand opening for Hellings Fest, and it just wasn't going to work out to get it done in time for that. They will have the street cleaned up and as best prepared for that weekend. But as far as doing the paving project, we're looking at probably the week after Hellings Fest or the end of the month. Their schedule's working out as. So I have also been working with Weens and Company. Part of the damage that has been created there was due to the work and the way they were doing the work on the streets, which they really didn't have any other options, but it did create additional damage. So there are some additional costs that were going to be incurred to do the paving. We will work with them, and hopefully they've committed to helping to pay for some of those damages, which are additional above what we were originally looking at in the paving project. That's about $17,648 above the original bid. I had approved $135,000 just because I anticipated some additional damage, so there's actually only $4,388 that will be additional on top of what is previously been approved. So that would be one motion that I will request this evening. The other is a project that was budgeted for next year, and that would be the repaving of the 400 and 500 blocks of South First Street. Those are the two blocks leading up to the swimming pool and the old mill. That street is pretty good. It's pretty stable, but it's got a lot of cracking and it needs a lot of work. Originally, we were planning to completely tear it out and repave it. After discussing this with the contractors, they felt that they could do a mill and overlay, and it probably would hold up very well. So we can save some substantial money by doing that way. We also, I think I had noted previously that we did not receive funding for the one of the clips that we applied for on the cost share program. We did not receive funding for that, so that's kind of changed how we'll be looking at doing some of the paving projects here this year and next year. We're too late in the year to do some of that chip seal that we're wanting, and their schedule is already full, so we're having to reevaluate what we can get done and work with trying to get some of these projects done ahead of time. So those will all be carried over into next year, and we'll work real hard to get a lot of work done next year. But this would knock out one more project, and while the contractor is here, that would be a simple project for them to do. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve the additional $4,388 to Pearson Construction to cover the cost of work needed to repair the damage to North Kansas Street. And then a second motion to approve a 2-inch mill and overlay of the 400 and 500 blocks of South First by Pearson Construction in the amount of $60,804. That would be a total of $65,192. And that is a budgeted item or amount.
Questions for Chris?
Just a quick one, in your report, you mentioned the 400 and 500 blocks of South First, but the proposal says 600 and 700 block. I don't know if that's,
It's the 600 and 700
600 and
block
700.
of Kansas,
Yes.
of North Kansas.
Yes.
So what you're seeing on the proposal is 600 and 700 block of
oh,
North
that's
Kansas,
the,
and then down
that's the
below.
Kansas, oh.
Yeah,
And then down
yeah,
below
very
is
good.
First.
I was gonna ask which one was what are the 400 and 500 blocks, I guess.
That is
My
the
original question was gonna be.
2 blocks from McPherson Street to Mill Street.
So the McPherson's Highway 4, so.
Yes.
Further questions?
Has Weems given any indication as to how much they're going to provide in terms of repairing the damage they did?
Basically, the difference from their original estimate, the contractor came back and reevaluated the project, and basically the $17,648, the difference between what the original bid was and this is the damage that was incurred, and they anticipate paying that. We'll know a lot more once we get the road cleaned off and have a true understanding of what it is, but that's what it's anticipated.
So this almost a zero-sum thing?
Mhm.
Okay.
Further questions for our Public Works Director? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we have 2 motions. We'll take them individually. Motion 1 is to approve an additional $4,388 to Pearson Construction to cover the cost of the work needed to repair damage to North Kansas Street. Motion is now in order. Go ahead.
So
moved. Second.
We have a motion, a second. Questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, we'll have our city clerk call roll, please.
Councilmembers Vanderwijk,
Yes.
Gallant,
yes.
Presley,
Yes.
Hebel,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. Thank you, Roxy. We'll now go to motion 2. Motion to approve a 2 mill and overlay of the 400 and 500 blocks of South First Street by Pearson Construction in the amount of $60,804. Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, we'll have our city clerk call roll, please.
Councilmembers Hebel,
Yes.
Presley,
Yes.
Gallant,
Yes.
Vanderwijk,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. Thank you, Roxy. Now turn our attention to item C, which is Viking Valley Shaded Picnic Structure, and a call on our park superintendent, Noah Flores. Hi, Noah.
Good evening.
Come on.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here to propose a purchase of a shaded picnic structure for Viking Valley Playground. A little bit of background, there's a budgeted amount of $15,000 in the CIP to renovate and improve the Viking Valley Playground for this year. Several items are going to be replaced, and also there's also a new improvement, which is the picnic structure. This new improvement is a proposed picnic table with a included shade that provides seating for 3 and is ADA compliant. The new structure is constructed from steel and coated with a polyester powder coating. This should ensure durability and easy cleaning. It will also be color coordinated with some new items in the park. We have green post caps, so the proposed coloring is a green, like a hunter green. This item replaces an old bench that was in the center of the playground, but that bench is no longer there. So this will provide a combination of seating, table, and shade all in one. There's currently no tables in the middle of the park, so that is a great added feature. 2 suppliers were found to offer the same proper improvement. Belson Outdoor offered a unit at the cost of $9,984. Webster Store also offered the same table at a cost of $8,854. As I said before, this is a capital plan line item, and it has been budgeted, and it comes from the Special Parks Fund. And so there's a recommendation to approve the purchase of a pedestal picnic table with a shade from Webster Store for the cost of $8,854.
Thank you, Noah. Other questions for Noah? Seeing no questions, thank you, Noah. Good presentation. Council, the recommendation is to approve the purchase of a pedestal picnic table with shade from the Webster Store for a cost of $8,854. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Are there questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, we'll have our city clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Presley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vanderway,
Yes.
Gallo.
Yes. Motion is approved. Thank you, council. Thank you, Roxy. We'll now turn our attention to item D, which is the stage rental fee structure, and we will call on our city administrator, Christy Northcutt.
Thank you, Mayor. This one predates me, so I went back to the archives. On November 18th, 2019, City Council considered approving a community stage that would be secured with a David J. Nutt grant and would have oversight by city staff. At that time, the cost to store the stage was about $120 a month, and insurance was $114 a year, so that was about a $1,500 cost to the city. To offset these costs, City Council recommended a fee structure to offer the stage for rent to outside groups. And it was set up at $500 a day for Lindsborg-based nonprofits, $950 a day for entities within McPherson and Saline counties, and $2,500 a day for entities based outside of those two counties. At the December 2nd, 2019 meeting, City Council approved the stage rental agreement and the fee structure that had been developed and allowed future changes to be made administratively. Since that time, the stage has been used for events such as the street dance and for Hillings Fest. Recently, one of our council members requested that this item be brought back to City Council to reconsider the fee structure, to retain the fee for for-profit events and groups, but to exempt Lindsborg-based verified nonprofits from paying the rental fee. All insurance requirements, the application procedures, and deadlines would remain intact as they are on the rental agreement. So for some additional background and staff input, we wanted City Council to be aware that local Lindsborg nonprofits who generally reserve the stage, as I mentioned, are Lindsborg at Work, for the street dance and Hillings Fest. With the removal of the fee, it is likely that more groups would reserve the stage for events such as Midsummer's Jazz Walk and other events. And that increased use could lead to increased maintenance costs due to wear and tear on the stage and increased demand and risk to the committee that transports, sets up, and tears down the stage. City staff currently does not do those duties. We do not transport, set up, or tear down. That is done by a volunteer committee. The committee has had some limited training, and it is based on their availability to transport, set up, and tear down. Whenever we receive an application, we consult the committee to make sure that they are available. They also assume the risks involved with setting up and tearing down the stage. So the prices have gone up a little bit since 2019, as you can imagine. It's still $120 a month to store the stage. It is now $212 a year to insure it. So the cost to the city is about $1,650, $1,656 to be exact. So I provided the rental agreement for you to review, and I'm sure that you will have questions, but the recommendation before you by the council member who brought this forward is to approve a modification to the stage rental agreement to exempt Lindsborg-based nonprofits from a rental fee.
At the December 2nd, 2019 City Council approved stage rental it said future changes allowed administratively. What does that mean?
Like I said, that predates me, but that's what the minutes reflect. So I assume that means that we could make changes in, just amongst staff to the rental agreement, but because this was based on fee structure, which was approved by council, we felt that city council should review it and that staff should not make that decision.
Questions for our city administrator?
So tell me about what makes you think that that more groups will probably be acquired. Do we get other inquiries throughout the year and then they just die away when they hear about the fee, or is this just strictly speculation?
It is speculation. We said that it's probable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So possible is equally,
fair. Yes.
Okay. If you had a lot of applications that went away when they heard about the fee, that would, in my mind, make it more probable but that's not the case, right? If you don't have applications.
We have had some inquiries, but we've not had applications. We've had folks inquire about the fee, but we have not had any applications that have decided not to rent it once they found out about the fee.
Okay.
I realize this is probably not apples to apples, but I just think it's interesting. We just talked about the sales tax, whatever I'm trying to say, sales tax, which is several $100,000 a year, and I just think how much money do these events bring in? And we're kind of dickering over $1,600 a year. It's crazy to me because those events have people that come in and buy things that give us sales tax. So, and also the volunteer group, which bless their hearts, are you on that? I think you're on it. So bless their hearts for doing that. But Lindsborg is run on volunteers, so that part doesn't bother me either because most of the committees that we're talking about being for free are also volunteer groups. So.
I think the challenge with this is that you limit the volunteers that are going to be able to set it up and take it down. And just in terms of its operation, there's been very limited training. It's a very well built trailer, first of all, and it's built with hydraulics because it's very heavy. And there's probably 10 hydraulic levers that are not labeled that have to be operated in a certain sequence. And it is hydraulic, and there's doors that open, there's things that lift, there's then supports that have to be installed, and you're standing on a stage with no guardrails around it. And I would just say the idea of trying to take that down and get it off of Main Street at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning is not smart at all or safe. The idea of having to get that tore down in the middle of the night is, that needs to be eliminated. So it either from the beginning is established that it's going to come in the afternoon and it's going to stay there till the next morning or whatever. We had issues with it this year trying to get it down, and there was a portion of it that was broken that's going to have to be repaired.
When did that come into play that it had to be moved in the middle of the night? Is it
Well, at the street dance, the permit that was, whatever the permit stated, I think said that it had to be out by the next one.
It didn't used to have to be that way with the stages because.
Now, the Hillings Fest sits there for the whole
Right, I
weekend.
didn't get it until Monday, so.
I don't think, normally, unless you're blocking the street, it would have to be done, in that kind of time frame. But that's a case-by-case basis in which you would, I just think you're gonna have to get more volunteers trained to do it so that if you are doing it several times a year or whatever, if there's a certain group not available, you have some other people. That'd be my.
I think that's
that'd be
great,
my
but
concern.
the old stage that was terrible before this one. It was also the same thing, Kenny Swisher and 2 other people knew how to put it together and do it, and they did it for 35 years, so.
But
It's
I
not a
think,
new concept.
I think kind of what you're running into is just a general risk assessment. What's the risk assessment of operating it? I mean, is there a 10% chance of failure? So, and how much does that cost every time you have a failure? I mean, any ideas on the repair for the last issue that happened?
Yeah, I know it, excuse me, there was a piece that was broken and that's been turned back over to Dower, and what they're gonna do to repair it, I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty easy, run up $1,000, $2,000.
Right, on that type of specialty.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the insurance and everything negligible compared to the maintenance.
Councilmember
Yeah, I would just, I certainly want the operation of it to be safe, and I think, no, the fee change notwithstanding, we should apply whatever attention needs to be applied to getting clear instructions for how to do it and making sure that it's done in a safe manner. That has to be, priority number one, regardless of the fee structure. From my perspective, I think, and I'm not saying this is what is being suggested, but it's a little bit suggestive of that. Like, if the fee schedule is there to discourage use because we have these concerns, I don't think that's the right mechanism. Let's address each one head on, which is, my concern is it's ridiculous to charge Hillingsfest $500 for this, based on the reasons that Kirsten outlined. And so that's what I'm going for here. Certainly, if opening it up to other things creates other issues, then we should address those issues head on, which to me, if it's, you said, Christy, that the current policy is that the city staff, make sure arrangements with the volunteer corps, make sure they're available. Maybe we put that on, maybe that's the volunteer's response, the person securing the applicant. Maybe they do that. I'm just brainstorming. I don't know, but the intent here doesn't have to mean that if the volunteers aren't available, they're not available, and that's part of the process, right? But I just don't think the fee should be what stands in the way of these events for people having them, if that makes sense.
I would agree. The stage came at a large cost, and it's something that probably should be used more than once a year or every 2 years. And it's just, so how do we make that happen? And how do we allow people to use it when they need it? Safely. Yeah, exactly.
Does anyone know if there, go ahead, Councilman, go ahead. Was there discussion at the time about, the stage number 1 and stage number 2 were owned by the committee. So this new stage, was there any discussion about it being owned by the Hillingsfest committee? Or?
No.
I don't remember. I think it was my first council meeting or whatever.
Oh, really?
Right? Wasn't it?
This is scary because I don't remember for sure, but my memory serves me that they came to the city because they needed that nonprofit organization to apply for the grant to pay for the.
But see, Hillingsfest is a nonprofit.
Now,
so-
they weren't then.
Oh, they weren't then.
They were a
Okay.
501c4.
Oh, okay.
And that's why they came to the city, but there were assurances it would not cost the city anything.
Roxy?
You do not have to be a 501c3 to be a net fund funds.
Well, for whatever case, something changed in 2019 because prior to that, the stages were owned by Hillingsfest, and then they had the responsibility. I understand Councilmember Vanderwick's concept of you really want to charge, but I don't know. I think I question this. Maybe it's a different issue, but should the city own the stage?
Yeah.
And I think there was conversation
about that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, back on the potential motion, the recommendation was to Lindsborg verify 501c3s. I know Lindsborg at Work Association is a 501c3, but I'm not sure if that is best.
It just became one.
5C3, not 4.
It definitely.
It wasn't four is
Okay.
advocacy. Sorry,
There's
so
there's
something else,
several,
but there's-
I just want to make sure.
I
we
just
got
wrote a
it.
letter of support for them in the last year, so.
Well, and I've donated to them through Pfizer, so I know that they're.
Yeah, they
There's-
just became one last year too.
Yeah, my question was just to make sure that the organizations that we want to be able to use it are 501c3s. That was the main question that I had on that.
And not a ton of thought, I mean, this sounds terrible, but I mean, that could certainly be changed. I was just writing things down on the form to get it out in front of us. If that needs to be changed,
I think
we
we're
sure
responsible.
can. We should
Uh,
put that in there.
And then, as far as the rates go, $500 previously for the Lindsborg-based nonprofits, but now that would be waived. But the other entities within McPherson and Saline counties, $950 a day. Does that include, if we were to approve this, would that include the transportation and setup? That $950 per day would be all in for the organization, let's say Salina or McPherson.
Yeah, we don't charge extra for the transportation or setup.
Should we consider that if we were gonna take it out of town, I guess, because you'd eat up the $950 pretty quickly, transportation.
Has anybody ever rented?
It's
It's
not,
not-
no,
it's
it's
not
not used out of
used.
town, that's if an entity from outside
It's got a shot
of
collar
the
on
county
it.
were to do an event in Lindsborg and request the
Well,
stage, so
that's a whole other topic of discussion then, because our potential customers could easily be festivals in Salina or McPherson, like their All Schools Day or whatever, which would be a logical way to pay for all of this. I didn't realize it was not allowed to go out of town. The intent was not for that originally, I don't think.
But I guess it sounds like we would need to, before we would want to sign on to that type of agreement, it seems like we want to get our instructions and safety.
Well, you'd have to have staff to.
Yes,
Figured
and
out before-
honestly, I think we'd want to consult with the designers about whether that was really designed to transport down the highway, because I know we're pulling in just a few blocks, and I'm not sure it is really highway ready.
According to the manufacturers, it is.
Okay.
It was designed that way, but
Okay.
I could be wrong. They can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, a big question I have on this, you know, we talk about like the insurance is so cheap and everything, but I kind of wonder what's the city's liability if something does happen. I mean, to me, it sounds almost like you got a skid steer that you overrode a bunch of safeties. And if your guys know how to use it, they're fine. If you have good, competent people, but the wrong person uses it, they're gonna die, and then you're gonna get sued for your whole business. Well, what happens if somebody gets hurt with this? I mean, does that insurance cover a custom-made thing that is not?
And I think the festivals also have insurance, don't they? They have, I know Holy Fest has
Yeah, but
insurance,
because they rent
so-
it from us.
And we do have an indemnification in this, so that would protect the city from liability to a very large degree.
Okay.
I agree with the mayor's comment, do we need to be in the business of owning this?
So I'm just realizing that I possibly might need therapy, and I will say this, but I'm having a traumatic disorder from when I was a Lindsfest chair, and we had, that stage was a booger, and people would get into the shed that Lindsfest had, and they would take it, and it would break, and they wouldn't tell Lindsfest, and Lindsfest wouldn't know, and it would be August, and we were calling Dower to panic to get it together to put it back, so. The problem with volunteer committees is that it's volunteer turnover all the time, so at least with city staff is more stable than volunteer committees that were putting in charge of bringing thousands of people into town. So with something that's that big and worth that much money, to me, it seems like.
To me, that's the kind of infrastructure help that the city can provide when we have a strategic goal of supporting tourism in our community. I mean, it's always going to be a gray area. How much is too much? But I think, to Kirsten's point, it takes every fiber of volunteer effort to just get those festivals to do all the rest of the things. And so, if the city can help with some of the higher infrastructure maintenance, I think that's a very helpful way for us to fulfill our strategic.
I think if the city had been in charge of the stage, I might not have gotten shingles after I was there.
Another question for council, then, if the city's indemnified when we rent these, you have the event coordinators, which is either Ellings Fest or Lindsborg at Work for the street dance. And then there's a separate group of volunteers that have nothing to do with, in the street dance situation, it's just a group of volunteers. They're not part of the association that's sponsoring it. They're just volunteers that came with the stage. So who is, it seems like there's no one responsible for them if that's the case.
Tracing down liability and negligence cases like this is a long chain. And in those cases, everyone will be named as a defendant. Everyone involved will be named as a defendant. In this case, the point would be that it would cut off the city from the people that were renting it from us. So those people would be sued. They would attempt to countersue the city. That suit would not be viable because of the indemnification clause. Then, even if the city did get sued further than that, if we got a judgment against us, we could then sue for that amount to be paid back to us. It's still messy, but that's about the cleanest way to do it. And the idea is that at the end of it, the city would be able to get a judgment rendering it basically back to zero, if it were to go all the way to that point.
And how did Lindsborg stop having all their festivals? Well, it was an issue with the state.
Council.
Or attorneys.
Council.
No offense.
I want to throw something out and see if, I don't know if it's a viable thing or not, but I appreciate the subject coming up and thank our council member for doing that. You know, we're coming up to, seems to be somewhat of a complex issue with a lot of different moving parts. And so I'm wondering if it would be a possible thing, so I'm asking our council and our administrator to waive the fee for Hillings Fest during this festival. Just get us past that, and when it can be, the subject could be looked at in a greater time period, whether we want to own, whether we want to be the landlord of a stage, do we, or how to do, so just a possibility that takes care of the Hillings Fest committee for this year would not have to pay,
Yeah, and so from a legal perspective, that's perfectly fine. When the city is engaging in the marketplace itself, as it would be here, we are free to pick most favored nations kind of deal. That would be completely fine if we want to handle it that way, and we can move forward.
you have any comments on that? That way we be just then, just that. Not before it.
I do have one potential, it is not a conflict, but I want to make it clear that it is not a conflict. I became aware of this came onto my radar, and I knew I wanted to talk about it again at our strategic planning session. Subsequent to that's at the point that I decided I would fill out the form and provide it to Christie to put it on the agenda. Subsequent to that, I learned that the hospital was involved in making a donation to secure the stage for the street dance. But I just want all of you to know that I had no knowledge of that before I brought this up. And maybe nobody even knew that, and I wouldn't have needed to say it, but I wanted to be perfectly clear that those were two independent activities that occurred.
And are they paying $500 a day? The Hillings Fest for using it, or is
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
they pay $500. So somebody that they secure to be a sponsor of the state of the something, basically they hand it straight over to the city, which is just silly.
Council, it sounds to me like you have at least 3 possibilities more, but it could be passed as it's recommended, or you change the rental agreement fee structure, or secondly, you could legally waive the fee for Hillings Fest next month and then take this up at a later time, or third, take no action whatsoever and then bring this up at a later time if you so desire.
It would seem that a motion, as it's structured here, would not prevent us from taking up the issues as they've been presented already.
Yeah.
So, and I certainly don't have any concern about addressing this down but I think, if we were to kind of take a modified step here and say, well, let's just waive it for Hellings Fest committee, doesn't really solve anything differently than passing this motion as it exists. To that point, I will move that we approve a modification to the stage rental agreement to exempt Lindsborg-based nonprofits from rental.
Second.
Second.
You got third.
We have a motion and a second to approve a modification to the stage rental agreement to exempt Lindsborg-based nonprofits from a rental fee. We have a motion and a second. Are there questions on the motion?
Maybe question or comment, I'm not sure. I like the concept of not charging these nonprofits, but at the same time, I'd like this to have a continued conversation on how we could find ways to rent this stage, to receive rental, to pay for the rental and insurance that's incurred by the city for this stage. And if we can have some assurance that we'll do that, I would vote in favor of it, but if it stops here, I would probably not be in favor of it.
Well, certainly the council can take this up again.
That doesn't prevent further discussion.
Further questions, comments? Okay, that being the case, we will have our city clerk call roll.
Councilmembers Presley,
Yes.
Eagle,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Vanderway,
Yes.
Gallant.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, council. Thank you, Roxy. Madam Administrator, do we have need for an executive session this evening?
We do not.
Great, thank you. Any further business to come before the council? Seeing no further business to come before the city council this evening, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. We are adjourned. Thank you, council.
We have a stage if you guys ever need to.